Hello, everyone, and welcome to Podtoid. We are your hosts. I am CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dan.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Markhams.
And this is episode 393, and the whole gang is back. Charlotte, Chris, Dan, welcome. It's nice you guys join us again. And just real quick, a special thank you to Wes for filling in last week. Did a fantastic job. Charlotte, last week you were at a board game convention, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was very, very busy, so we didn't really get to do everything that we wanted to do, but we played quite a few really nice card games. In particular, this game called The Game, and I actually went and bought it and played it again this weekend. That was really fun. It's just like a number game where you have to try and it's too long to explain, but go and look it up. It's a load of fun.
Nice. Dan, you got a new dog last week, right? I saw a picture of it. It's adorable.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you end up naming?
That's what I've named him. Kane, from Red Dead Redemption 2. It's a stray dog that wanders into camp. And me being the massive turbo dweeb that I am, I figured, I'm lazy. I don't like thinking of original names. I'm just going to name my dog Kane after that one.
Nice. Very nice. And Chris, I don't know what you were doing last week. I assume it was like a crumpet emergency or something.
No. I just knew that it was going to be you and Occam's and Wes. And I was just so completely horrified by the concepts of what the show was going to be like that I decided to be as far away from it as possible.
That's probably the best choice. But welcome back, you guys. And we got a good show for you today. We're going to talk some news, talk some games. And then after the show, we have a new segment called Spoilsport, where we spoil movies. So Chris and I are going to be talking about Captain Marvel, which just came out this weekend. Opened to, I think, $153 million opening weekend box office in North America, which is really good. So if you've seen Captain Marvel and you want to hear two jabronis talk about it, stay tuned after the show. If you haven't seen it, just turn us off when you hear the end of music. A lot to talk about today, but before we go, I just want to start us off with, I want to ask you guys about this story, and I want to know, who do you think was wrong? So we're going to start out going to Pittsburgh, and I will let the reporter from CBS KDKA tell the story.
It was around 9 in the morning on Monday when a state trooper was waved down and told about a possible medical emergency on Route 28. When he got to the scene, the trooper spotted a Chrysler Town & Country minivan parked on the shoulder and two men on the other side of the guide rail. In the criminal complaint, the victim told the trooper he was driving the minivan with his passenger, 25-year-old Clayton Lucas. The victim told the trooper Lucas reached around his seat while he was driving and began choking him.
Now, obviously, you shouldn't choke people. That's wrong. Also, Clayton Lucas has crazy eyes, and his name is in the wrong order. Clearly, his first name should be Lucas. You shouldn't choke people unless, that's their fetish, right?
It's a very Texas Chainsaw name, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, when I hear that name, I think of all kinds of Deep South issues and problems.
Well, he definitely looks like someone who lives in the backwoods. I'll put a link to his mugshot in the story, but he has crazy eyes. So obviously choking someone is wrong, but wait till you hear why he did it.
The victim told the trooper he wouldn't stop singing Christmas songs, so the victim said Lucas tried to choke him to make him stop singing.
Okay, so choking someone is bad, but is it as bad as singing Christmas carols in March?
Oh, you know what? I take it all back. Clayton is the hero among all of us. He just gave into his instincts. We all have to hold back when we hear that music. He didn't. So in my eyes, he's absolutely in the right.
Yeah, I mean, really, if I was Clayton, I would claim self-defense because he may have assaulted him with his hands, but clearly the driver was assaulting him with those terrible Christmas songs in fucking March. I don't want to hear, I don't know, Baby It's Cold Outside in March. Come on.
I mean, do we know anything about this guy's background, like what he does for a living? Because if he worked at Starbucks, then he has 2 or 3 months of just being bombarded day in, day out with Christmas carols and Christmas songs. So like finally he thinks he's free, and then somebody starts singing it in the backseat and he starts having flashbacks. I mean,
Yeah, he's probably like a former Sears employee or something. He had to put up with 20 years of that for like 3 months out of the year.
And the fact that he was choking the driver as well shows that he was willing to go down for this. He was willing to like have the van crash and kill them both in order to stop the onslaught.
I mean, it seems fair. Especially, you know, your name is Clayton, so that's already a strike against you. You've had to deal with that all your life. And it really depends on the song too, because the Christmas music march, it's kind of a party foul, if you will. But it could be something like, what is it? We wish you a Merry Christmas. That one, you know, which just immediately makes me want to buy a gun. And then there's other, you know, some of the other stuff like the 80s Christmas songs I can deal with a little bit more, but that's a tough one.
I mean, definitely, no matter what time of year it is, it could be the day before Christmas. If my Uber driver is singing Christmas Shoes, I'm killing us both. Just driving straight head on into a semi-truck, just dead, because that is the worst song. And if that's what he was singing,
is Christmas Shoes.
You've never heard Christmas Shoes? It's the worst fucking Christmas song ever written.
Okay.
I'll send you a link to it, but it's basically like this little girl trying to buy shoes for her mom who's dying. And
that's
so
awful.
It's so fucking schlocky and they play it on all the country music stations because of course they do during the holidays. And it makes me want to like kill everyone. Just
that the Christmas Shoes country station, is that the same, like in the same vein of songs that end with like, and they buried him with the flag, that kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, okay. That is the Christmas version of they buried him with the flag. The passenger in the case, Lucas, was taken into custody. Cops apparently had to sweep his legs when he wouldn't cooperate, in case you're wondering what race he is. He's facing multiple charges, and I just thought that was a fun way to kick off the show before we get talking about games. But speaking of sweeping out the legs, Dan, you've been playing Devil May Cry 5, right? It's a great segue. Thank you.
It's a great game. It's probably the best video game you can play. If you're looking for an emotional, moving story, a tale of fatherdom or growing up, you're not getting that. You're going to get demon killing, bare ass from both the male and female side of things, cigarette smoke, and a lot more demon killing with really bad one-liners. It's something. It's probably my game of the year already. Just looking at the future release schedule, I don't really see anything else topping it. And a lot of that has to do with context. I've been waiting for this for like a decade now. DMC Devil May Cry was fine. I actually liked that game, but it still wasn't really what I really wanted from the series in general. Just 4 still kind of left room for more. And we got more. And without spoiling anything, I think there is going to be more Devil May Cry, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I was seeing on Steam that this is like this first or second most played game from Capcom, or most concurrent players at the same time. So I think there was just a lot of pent up anticipation for it, especially because, you know, as you said prior to the show, not a lot of people cared for DMC, that were really just looking for a return to the norm.
Yeah, like DMC Devil May Cry is still a perfectly good game, especially the next gen like port of it, because they revamped some of the gameplay in that and made it definitely feel more like classic Devil May Cry. Whereas this, I feel like, takes the best from everything. Takes the best from classic Devil May Cry, the best of DMC, because there's a lot of twists on the gameplay mechanics that are straight up borrowed from that, I think, and still adds new things as well, like in the form of V. It's the best gameplay in the series to date, and a lot of that has to do with the variety of characters and how they're all different. Nero is basically Dante light. His combos are quick and easy. Instead of blocking and stuff, he has more of a dodge mechanic. And what really separates him is the Devil Breaker system. It's all these mechanical robot arms that you can equip. All of them each have their own different abilities. Some of them let you do like sort of wrestling moves. Some of them are like a rocket arm that you can ride around like a skateboard. Others, you know, like let off an electrical blast. So mix and matching those different arms and then even swapping between them like mid-combo is just great. Like, this is, as I said, it's the best gameplay in the series state. Like, juggling and doing cancels and then switching between arms is endlessly fun. Like, Nero is probably my favorite character. Like I want to say Dante, but lately, as I've been replaying the game again, I'm just having a blast playing with Nero, which I did not expect. And then you have Dante. Dante is relatively the same, except now all of his different stances can be swapped between. Like he has 4 or 5, I think, different stances and basically styles that he can switch between at any given moment. So it's similar to the Devil Breaker system in that instead you're switching just between a different stance, and that in turn lets you do different moves. And of course, he also has this motorcycle twin chainsaw blade thing that you've seen all the trailers and stuff, and that thing is fantastic. It's probably the thing I automatically switch to end like any combo, just because it looks great. And then to top it all off, you do a taunt, and next thing you know, you're getting the Smoten Setsi style, and that has a voiceover when it happens. It's incredible. And then you have V, aka Adam Driver, and he was probably the most concerning thing up to release. Like when I saw V the first time, wasn't really sold on him, and I was kind of worried that maybe like his sections of the game would be the worst. But surprisingly, they're pretty good. Most notably because they're so different.
Yeah.
Like V can't fight. V's a crippled loser with a cane who lets his weird summon creatures fight for him. He's this weird fucking like 2004 ass goth kid who reads from a book constantly, and he just lets his summons fight for him. He has this weird panther cat that claws at people, and he has a bird that shoots projectiles and doesn't shut up, constantly mocks you. It's really annoying, actually. And then he has a giant golem as his like big special summon. And yeah, it's all deliberately slow, and more or less you just you press various buttons to initiate their combos, and you just stay back. Like as V, your whole objective is to just not get hit and let your summons fight for you. And it's a real nice change of pace, but I kind of wish there was more of him, because he's kind of there and then he's gone. So,
do you now that you've played the game, do you agree with Chris Carter's 10 out of 10 review?
Oh, absolutely. Like I think it's the best action game to date. Like even topping Bayonetta, which is maybe a spicy opinion, but it's without a doubt in my mind, anyways, the best Devil May Cry. He said Devil May Cry 3 is better, but I feel like this one is more approachable as well to newcomers, in the sense that like you don't really need context of the story. You can just jump right into this. All you need to know is there's a demon king being summoned. You gotta go beat it up. That's the gist of it.
Nice.
If I have any kind of complaints, it's that early on the environments are kind of drab. It's a lot of like, there's a subway station. You're fighting demons in a subway station. Now there's a big industrial area. That's really about it. And there's also a weird co-op system. It's hard to explain, but at any given moment you're playing, every now and then the characters team up. So as Nero, for example, every now and then you'll see V off in the distance fighting somewhere in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And that V that's fighting is being played by somebody else over the internet somewhere. So you're watching another player in the background scenery as V fighting off different enemies. And eventually you get to play that segment as well. And then at the end of each mission, you can also then rate that player on how stylish you thought their play was.
That's
so, of
strange.
course, I'm a nice guy. It's real strange. And every now and then you'll actually then team up against like a boss or a big group of enemies. So it has this weird co-op system where every now and then you either see a player or they're like just there helping. And then you can rate them on their style. So it's interesting.
I like that. I like that idea.
No, I really do as well. And I don't know if it's like a DRM thing or just like an idea. I like it. It's a neat little system.
Nice.
It's fun just to like stand there and then watch them for a little bit fighting. So,
Chris, what have you been playing this week?
This week I haven't been playing anything really. Been out and about and watched a few movies and stuff. But last week I was playing Dead or Alive 6 and Ape Out, both of which I reviewed for the site. I'm not going to bang on about both of them. I spoke a little about Dead or Alive when I was playing the demo. It's Dead or Alive and it plays like Dead or Alive, and that's fine because those games are great. But we're 7 years on from the initial release of Dead or Alive 5 before it got its expansions, and I don't see much here that I think it can be considered like a great leap forward or a new generation of the series. And as I wrote in my review, I think it's super clear that the series is kind of out of ideas and it needs to be completely revamped and taken in a completely new direction, or the characters need to be like restarted, or even just like make it 2D or whatever you want to do, but you can't just do another The Dead or Alive game. Well, I say that, but then again, if they make another $1,000 worth of DLC and it sells over the course of the next 12, 24 months, then I guess why do they need to change anything? But on the grounds of it being a new entry in the series, like they need to switch it up. They need to switch it up. And the other game I played was Ape Out, which is from Devolver, and you're a gorilla who breaks out of captivity in a series of locations and then smashes everyone in the fucking face until everybody's dead.
It sounds like one of those games did not have good style. The other one had smoke and sexy style. See, I'm thinking we should drop numbers and go with like the Devil May Cry rating system.
Oh, I don't play Devil May Cry games. They're rubbish. Anyway, and you grab hold of like characters who've got guns, and then they become almost like twin shit shooter.
Do like this
out. You grab hold of people who've got guns, and then it becomes almost twin stick shooter style because they panic and start firing their guns, and you kind of control them to like shoot all their mates. And then maybe when they run out of ammo, you throw them into another friend that knocks him out of a window. And like a lot of those Devolver games like High Hell and games like that, it's really about how fast you do things and how slick you do it. And I guess what smoking slickster shitty style it is.
Smoking sexy style. The best of styles.
The best of styles. But I think everyone should check it out. It's a slight game, like it's 2 or 3 hours long, but it doesn't cost a lot. And I can't believe I haven't mentioned the music. The music is its own character because it's dynamic, and it's like they call it procedurally generated. It's like they have all these drum beats that come in and out live depending exactly on what's happening on screen. So it kind of ends up sounding like Whiplash, if you've seen that movie.
Yeah.
Where as you get out of control and as more bad guys come in, it just becomes this really frantic, like acoustic drumming. And that is like almost as much character of the game as this like Psycho Simian character. But yeah, everyone should go and check it out. It's really good. You walk through a skyscraper as a gorilla and you throw people through windows, and then the SWAT team turn up and you crack their heads together. So
I like that when you die in that, it shows like a trail of where you went.
Yeah, like it says on the screen. Really, yeah, it says on the screen like dead in giant letters, but embedded into those letters is the map of your route through the level until you got killed.
I love
it. That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen Birdman, but the whole kind of look of the game is the same as that title sequence, where like the words are animated, like words that are like the names of the levels and the stages are like animated to the beat of the drum, and they're also embedded into the scenery, so they're kind of written on the walls and the floor. It's an incredibly stylistic game, and of course that means it gets people level at it the accusations of, oh, you just like it because it looks arty, and go fuck yourself, it's fine.
I was going to ask, is that coming to Switch or is that like a PC only thing?
Yeah, it's on Switch and it's on PC. It's funny you should ask that. I have it written down in my notes right here.
Speaking of apes, Charlotte, you have been playing. That was a terrible segue, Chris. Pull up. Ape Escape, Charlotte, go.
Yes, I've been playing Ape Escape for the first time because it's another one of my list on the other podcast games that I have to play. So yeah, I've started Ape Escape about a week ago after a bit of faffing around because my PS1 memory card got corrupted. So I had to get a new one. And also there's a bit of a weird thing with Ape Escape for PS1 that it doesn't work on PS3. So I had to like find some other way to play it. But yeah, now that I've actually managed to start playing it, it's really, really good. It's not one of those PS1 games that is really, really hard for a quote unquote kids game. It's very well balanced. Can be frustrating, but in a way you feel like the ways in which it is frustrating, it's sort of counteracted by something else. So yeah, it's pretty good. Also, I'm actually really surprised by how good it is. Sounds a bad way of saying it, but how good it is for a PS1 game. Like, you would think potentially a PS2 game, actually. Like, the levels are so complex and the art style is pretty good. Like, it definitely feels like an end era PS1 game. It's like top level PS1 game, I'd say.
For my part, this past week, I played the Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, which is a 3DS port, enhanced port, I should say, of the Wii Classic. I really love Kirby's Epic Yarn on the Wii. I thought it was the most beautiful game ever created at the time. The gameplay, it was just so well thought out of how a piece of string that can whip itself can interact with the environment and how it attacked enemies and solve puzzles. Really easy game, but just something I enjoyed kicking back and playing. And I even enjoyed doing the post-game stuff where you complete little challenges for all the members of the apartment complex. This game, it's more of the same. It's the exact same level layouts. They made some small changes to the aesthetics in a few stages. They add a hard mode, which is basically this game gets its own version of Mr. X. So just this creature that keeps following you around. You can defeat him, but he comes back like 10 seconds later. And it adds a level of difficulty to it. But then they also add ravel abilities, and I talked about this in my review, that these are basically classic Kirby power-ups that you're just given randomly throughout levels. There's no kind of science to the formula on how they dole them out. It's just kind of here's your bomb ability, here's your sword ability, and it really breaks the game. For a game that is as simple as Kirby's Epic Yarn is, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn takes away whatever challenge there was in terms of defeating enemies or solving puzzles. And so that was really kind of disappointing for me. Still a beautiful game, still has an amazing soundtrack, good feel. The people who are doing their music are just absolutely outstanding at it. But it's still enjoyable. I wish they would update it to make some of this stuff optional, but oh well. And then the other game I played this week, I did a preview on it, was Wrath Aeon of Ruin. This is the new Quake engine game from 3D Realms. They are developing it alongside Kill Pixel, who has been developing it solo and then in a group of just him and another person for a few years now. It's a classic Quake shooter, as I am told. I have never played Quake, so I have to take their word for it. But I played the second level, the level that's going to be on display at PAX East this year, and it's really fun. It's lightning fast. The frame rate, they were touting that it goes up to 666. The shooting just felt really good, and then the guns, the type of guns that they're giving are really creative, that fit well into this kind of dark and dank world. There's an automatic gun that shoots teeth. I mean, that's really fucking creative. And then there's another gun that sends out globs of acid that you can either hit the person or hit the demon and it hurts them, or it can hit the ground and it becomes an acidic place that can hurt them or you if you jump into it. So it's really beautiful for the throwback aesthetic. I think it's gonna I think a lot of people are gonna enjoy it. Just again, based off of a single level that I played for about 30 minutes. It's all I could think about this week, so I'm excited for it.
It sounds great. When you told me that there was when you said just then that there was a gun that shoots teeth.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the Skype window here, and I was like, why isn't Occam's microphone flashing up when the teeth gun was mentioned? But,
that's like in the David Cronenberg film Existenz.
Oh right, yeah.
Right.
But that's a gun that I think you're going to go and draw up the blueprints for that right now, and you've probably got enough ammo at home anyway. So,
I mean, I do. I'm working on the I call that a Mississippi baby rattle. Is my mason jar full of teeth belonging to my friends and myself.
Okay, hey Algams, you've been playing Metro, right?
I am. I'm continuing to play Metro, and let's see. I think I'm near the end. Not entirely sure, but it seems like it's wrapping up in some way. It's fun. It's about what I thought it would be, in the open world concept, and it's the same thing where the combat's fine and the open world stuff is pretty, but my happiest moments in that game are just watching the people interact on a train. The train area kind of replaces the metro in terms of watching the community interaction in these characters, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm playing on easy because I'm not in this to like I'm gonna beat this game with stealth. Blah. I just kind of want to go kill shit and experience the world. So I do a lot of throwing knives. And I have just a lot of fun throwing knives at mutants and killing them. But I just like throwing knives in general. Like they're just cool, which was a thing I could do in real life and not get arrested.
Little bit concerning.
We all have our thing. But it's a lot of fun. The story's okay. The combat's fine, but it's the world and the atmosphere that really sell it for me. It's a good game to put on headphones and just sort of exist in for a little while. And Gamefly theoretically should have Devil May Cry 5. God, I hope by Tuesday of next week, which I'm very excited to play. So I look forward to having thoughts about that.
Nice.
When I listened to the show last week, between all the frankly disgusting conversation you were all having, you mentioned Metro. And one thing you didn't touch upon, which I wanted to ask, mainly probably for my own sake, is do you find the game frightening? Because I think that game's really scary, and I was wondering if you do you find the atmosphere and the things that leap out of doorways at you, or are you the kind of person that you're not very jumpy? And
no, I don't like jump scares. Or don't do a lot for me. Like I don't get scared. A jump scare doesn't. I get startled, which just makes me angry. It's not something I find particularly like. There was one bit. I think there was like maybe a child skeleton or referencing a child's death, and I was like, oh, well, that's a little tiny bit of humanity. But honestly, having played the other Metro games, it's still kind of relatively fresh in my mind. There hasn't been anything like in it that I wasn't expecting. That didn't frighten me. It's. For me, more it's kind of like this walking through like the corpse of the earth,
absolutely,
like all the layers of dust and the desiccated skeletons and all. I find it more kind of in a sad, enchanting way than frightening. So,
I think I wrote in my review. There's this feeling. The game does a really good job of presenting a world that you can believe. Oh, right up until this 1 minute. All this was fine and everything was going fine. Then 60 seconds later, it just looks like this now. And I think the game does a really good job of demonstrating that.
Yeah, and especially later on when you get into areas that you could tell used to be more inhabited and maybe more civilization, maybe something like less of a military base and more of something else. You really see that. And I like that quite a bit. And I spent a lot of time because I don't think the designers get enough credit for like just looking at the walls and like the abandoned buildings and stuff to see like the posters and a lot of photographs. And I just love to look at those dumb photographs because there's a lot of people making like goofy, like awkward family photo kind of poses. And I hope to God those are the developers and the people who worked on the game. Just like, hey, give us your worst photos from your prom and we'll throw those in the game. I love stuff like that, and so that's always a nice moment for me.
There's just a really macabre, almost poetry to how everything looks in it, and then like a massive spider falls on your face and ruins everything.
Oh my God! So in the game, when you're in this first-person mode and you have your like wristwatch is your compass and your light meter and blah 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 blah. But occasionally when you're going through certain areas, these like spiders that sort of look like the facehuggers from Alien, but like more of just a hand, will like crawl across you. And they don't like the first time that happened. That one was kind of scary just because my old lizard brain kicked in. But now I'm really happy and I wish one would just stay with me permanently and just crawl across me at all times because it's really cute. It's like when they defang the head crab from what was it? Half-Life 2. Yeah. And it was just like that dude's pet. That's so cute. So it's kind of like that.
I have this strange thing with spiders. Like I'm not arachnophobic. They kind of creep me out and they kind of scare me, but I really love them. Like I think they're like great creatures and I'd never, ever, ever kill one and stuff. But But still, like when they come scurrying across your mask in that game, it proper makes my blood run cold.
I love
it happens a lot.
Yeah, it really does. Like, and Artyom, I can never say his name right, is just super okay with that.
Far more okay than I would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be fair, I think he's got bigger problems, hasn't he? I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That's very fair. And just to kind of bounce back to your spider comments, I saw a video recently that some scientists filmed in the Amazon of a bird-eating tarantula, which is the largest tarantula on Earth, carrying off a possum that it had killed.
Oh, nope. Nope. That is it for games, but we have plenty of headlines to cover. It is time for the news. And when I say plenty, I mean, just sort of some. It's kind of a light news week, but there are a few stories to talk about. And we're going to start with EA, which announced this week it will not be holding a press conference before E3 this year. The company, which has some big games on the docket for 2019, including Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, from Respawn. Hopefully that's the game that'll turn their fortunes around in terms of Star Wars. Almost said Star Trek there. Anyway, the past few years, EA has hosted its own EA Play event in addition to a press conference just before E3. But this year, it seems that the company's taking a cue from Nintendo in its Treehouse stream. The company said it's dropping the presser in favor of doing multiple streams that will feature more gameplay as well as insight from development teams, something you really can't do in a 90-minute press conference. I want to ask you all, do you think this is another sign of the waning influence of E3?
Oh, absolutely. This is a good move, in my opinion.
Sure. And it's like, well, I'll let you carry on, but it's good for the companies, but it's also like being selfish. It's kind of good for us because, well, especially me, when like all of those press conferences, UK time are like 1, 2, 3 a.m. Like, and I stay up to help write that stuff. So the less companies that want to do these press conferences all in a row, like, I'm all for it. All of you stop doing them. Like, all of you stop.
The one thing I will say coming from the press side of this is that it is convenient to have all of their announcements done in 90 minutes. Like, I know it's absolute hell to write the stories as they're announced, because I've done that for the past 3 or 4 years. But I think it's more convenient to get them in, a little less than 2 hours than to have them spread out over a day or two. And I hope that's not what they do. Like, here's a stream of one game and then we're going to announce another game like 5 hours from now. So you better tune in then. That to me would be more annoying. But I kind of do agree that this is how it should go, because I'm far more interested in watching the Nintendo Treehouse streams than I am the Nintendo Direct at E3.
E3 has really morphed from what it was, because it was just a trade show, wasn't it, for the industry?
Yeah.
And then they really embraced the idea of it being a showcase for people who love video games. Tune in and we'll show you all this exciting stuff. And it almost became just more, fuck the shareholders. It was more just for like video game players, the consumer. But it almost seems like now it's kind of having to evolve again in an era where everyone's just like, even individual publishers, like companies like NetherRealm haven't announced a game at E3 for ages. They've always been like doing them a couple of like a month or so, or 2 months before, or whatever. And more publishers are doing that. And now the members of the big three are like doing it too. And I guess we just live in this persistent, constant barrage of information world now. And it's 24/7. And I don't think they feel like we need to show this stuff at 11 a.m. on this morning. I just don't think they're looking at it like that anymore.
It doesn't do them any favors.
No.
Like, if Sony wants to announce a PlayStation 5, they're going to do it on their own terms, so they can, have that news for months on end. So
yeah,
and that news cycle.
And with EA, most of the games that they sell the most of are FIFA, are Madden, are actually just FIFA and Madden. So those are the titles that, the people who care about those titles probably don't really care about tuning in for a press conference. Like,
that's the thing too.
There's not going to be a massive change in how Madden plays that you need to, set up an entire press conference to talk about it.
I've always felt like EA press conferences felt like the most traditional style trade show conferences for years now, where everyone else was like, here's a showcase of video games. EA were still the guys who go up on stage and talk about Madden numbers for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think people, the general audience, hated it. Like, last year's reaction was bad. And I think now they're finally being like, let's just drop this. So
yeah, I think it's for the better, and it's kind of embracing, the influencer age that we live in terms of advertising.
Oh, I hate that word. Influencer.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's telling to me that that's a job title now.
Mm.
Yeah.
Have any of you guys seen the American Meme? It's basically an entire film on Netflix about the influence of influencers, and it was saying that how they can get like $1 million for one Instagram post. It's just absolutely sickening.
Metal Gear Solid 2 predicted all of this.
Yeah, there's the Fuck Jerry Instagram account was they're commanding like that much money, but then again they've had a lot of troubles recently because they steal content. But yeah, no, it's ridiculous how much money is being paid for a tweet or a picture.
I remember I think it was at Halloween last year that there was stores selling like influencer costumes, like fancy dress costumes as influence, and it was just like a pair of fucking sunglasses and like a laptop.
Yeah, I remember reading somewhere that Kylie Jenner was paid like $180,000 for an Instagram post. I was like, damn, we are in the wrong line of business.
Yeah, that's like even lazier than paying them $100,000 to appear in a nightclub. Like, this is literally just an Instagram post. At least in a nightclub, they have to walk.
And it's funny because, like the Fire Festival thing, like that was such an absolute disaster and was entirely built on influencer influence. But even though that was like a huge disaster, it hasn't stopped corporations from being like, no worries, this is the way to market it. But I guess, that is that's more of a one-off.
I would say, going back to the E3 thing, the only thing I will miss, because I do think it's E3 needed to evolve and people have changed, and how we, as you guys have said, how we assimilate information and how we get it has changed and all. But I will miss, it's kind of in the same vein of like going to Blockbuster, to like hunt down a game. There was a time when like we all knew when E3 was, and at least for me in college, like my buddies and I, we would gather at like one specific apartment. We'd have beer, food. We'd all like watch the conference together.
Yeah.
And it was really, really fun. And that sort of evolved into all of us watching on our computers and wherever we were in the world. But I guess I'll miss that a bit. That it build up, that excitement for an event isn't quite there. But, I always have the memories and my Blockbuster card. So
I remember like booking days off work for like, because Nintendo's was usually in the middle of the day over here. And I remember being like, well, I watch Microsoft and so I watch Microsoft tonight, set the alarm to get up at 3 a.m. to watch Sony's, and then I'll book tomorrow off to watch Nintendo's. And when I think back to that I did that, it was like, wow, that that system really worked for the fans.
I will say, thankfully, after EA announced this, Digital Devolver came out and said that they will still host their press conference at E3, so we can all look forward to more of this in a few months.
The future of video games and the future.
That goes on for 35 more minutes.
That's
Nina Struthers is my favorite video game personality, I think.
I love that they're essentially every Devolver Digital, every E3 thing for them is just like an Adult Swim one-off.
Yeah.
And I love it so much. I love how ridiculous it is.
They always kind of dunk on a specific theme at those E3s, and I'm very curious what they'll be doing this year.
Yeah, because last year
the major departures.
Last year they made fun of Battle Royale, and then they had the loot box coin. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this year. I just enjoy them because they always seem to say exactly what I wish I could say about this industry.
I hope they dunk on video games PR. I could go on a rant right now about video game PR lately. It's bad.
All right, our second story is on Nintendo. After months of rumors that I actually frankly did not believe to being true, Nintendo announced last week that it is entering the VR game with its next Labo kit. Nintendo Labo VR will include a constructible set of VR goggles, as well as some cardboard accessories like a camera, an elephant head, a bird, a blaster. The kit will retail for $80. I can't see VR because my left eye is broken, but the one concern I repeatedly read online has to do with screen resolution. For those of you who have used a VR, would that be a concern here with Nintendo Switch?
Yes. The thing about VR is you need a really high resolution. Otherwise, like in 1080p, to give you a rough idea, it's like looking through a screen door on 1080p. Like if you know that mesh,
yeah,
that's the kind of vibe I get when I'm looking at a 1080p image in VR. I can't imagine 720p that close to your face. Like if you want a good example, just shove your Switch like near your eyes. That's what you're gonna see. So I'm really curious what kind of games will be on those things, because they'll have to be very simplistic, because it's gonna be blurry.
All I got to say about VR is if it's not costing me £15 to play Dactyl Terror for 4 minutes and I have to stand in like a shopping centre to do it, then I'm not interested.
Oh, Chris. Wow. You just took me back to that 8th grade field trip to New Orleans. Bless your heart, sir. Dactyl Terror. And Metal Marines. We played Metal Marines. That was ours.
We had a VR place just down the road from where I live. I think I went there and it just played there was like a fantasy RPG. I think it might have been called Legend Quest. And the actual VR units that you were like housed in like these big plastic tree stumps, because it was like a forest. But it was like, it was like £10 for like 5 minutes or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, I just have no opinion on VR really. I don't. When it comes to the more sophisticated VR sets, I don't have any of the setup at home really or the money to afford it. And also just a bit like, in general with VR, a lot of the games seem to be poorer versions of what you can play outside of VR, and the VR is not interesting enough to me to make that jump, worth it.
Yeah.
So I've kind of stayed out of VR so far, maybe in a few years' time. But hey, like Labo, I was sort of skeptical of that at first before the first set came out, but it just seems to be really bringing joy to people, and that's a great thing to see in quite a cynical industry. So yeah, sure. I'm really excited to see more about this, just based on the fact that the originals seem to just make people happy. So
yeah, and I know a lot of people thought that, or not a lot of people online were saying that obviously Labo was a failure because it's, not selling in hotcakes, but this is the 4th set that they've done. If this was a disaster, I don't think they'd be releasing this. So clearly there are people who are buying this and enjoying it. More power to them, I guess.
I briefly saw a picture. Is this the Labo VR where it has like you looking up a duck's ass?
Yes.
Okay.
There's another one where you have like an elephant and you control its trunk or something like that.
Okay.
Interesting take on it.
Sounds like a fraternity initiation. Looking up a duck's ass.
Well, David Cameron did something similar when he was at university, right?
Oh.
Allegedly.
I forgot about those stories. That's right. You guys can't talk about. They can't talk about that in the UK.
Let me tell you about the fucking Tories. No, that's not. we try to keep this under an hour, don't we? So
yeah. Finally, we need to talk about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. We're still a few months out from release and probably just a few weeks away from the first trailer. But the film has been getting nothing but negative press since all the details started to leak about it. There was the Green Hill Zone image from last year. Then there was the official Sonic poster that was followed by those pre-production image renders that, were kind of confusing to people. And that official poster is garbage. And now we've gotten what may or may not be our first look at Sonic. Some images were leaked from merchandising materials for action figures from the movie that appear to have what will be Sonic's final form in the movie. It's something, I guess. It's a lot to take in. He doesn't wear gloves, but instead has white fur on his hands. And some images, it honestly looks like he doesn't have a neck. If you guys have seen the design, what are your thoughts on it?
They also have white fur between his eyes, I guess, to show the semblance of the old Sonic having this weird connected eye monstrosity. I don't know. At this point, I think it's gotten to the point where like we can just acknowledge now that Sonic was a mistake. This is more evidence towards this.
if you thought Sonic games were bad, just wait till you see his movie.
I can't be mad at Sonic, really. Once you've, seen more of the travesty that is Bubsy, you can't really be mad at Sonic, can you?
Maybe.
I would say Sonic is worse than Bubsy now. I'd say he's had more bad games. He's had more bad games. He's had a lot of games, and a lot of them are bad now. Like Sonic 06, I would argue is worse than any Bubsy game. And I feel like this movie just adds to it. CJ, have you played Sonic 06?
I have played Sonic 06. It's an incredibly broken mess, but I don't think it's as bad as Bubsy.
Well, different opinions, I guess. But I feel like there's been a lot of that. There's Shadow the Hedgehog. There's Sonic 06. There's been a lot of bad Sonic games. Now you got a really bad movie with a terrible design. He's furry in all the wrong places. It's worse than Bubsy, man.
No. See, Sonic is the Fox News host, and then Bubsy is the even more racist person that the Fox News host brings onto a show to seem less racist. Like, that's the disparagement between them.
He's
Bubsy
the Breitbart,
is Alex Jones.
Breitbart.
Yes.
He's the Breitbart correspondent.
I'm just curious how this was ever greenlit, how anybody over there thought this was a good idea.
I mean, the one question I kind of had set up just for when we talked about this was just simply, and I just really want any of you to give me your opinion on this. So Detective Pikachu, yeah? You have Pokemon, and they were the Game Boy sprites, and then they've made 3D models of them in the N64 games or GameCube games or whatever. And then they take these characters and they make fully formed 3D versions that have got light in their eyes and actual fur and shadows and weight to their movement. And they've done the same with Sonic. They've done the exact same thing. But everyone's saying that Sonic looks like complete garbage and is nightmare fuel and is a monstrosity, but no one's saying that about the Pikachu characters. So all I want to know, not that I'm agreeing one way or the other, is what's the difference between the two that means Sonic looks terrible? Go on. Well, that's why I'm asking, because I want an answer.
Still looks like Pikachu. He's a furry-ass Pikachu that's lifelike. He still looks like Pikachu. Sonic has no gloves. He has this weird off-brand, shitty Nike shoes that were probably just something got from a dollar store. Weird furry white hands, fur between his eyes. He doesn't look like Sonic the Hedgehog. Looks like this deformed version of him. If they just took the classic new modern design Sonic render, made it furry and more lifelike in the same vein as Pokemon, I don't think as many people would be as upset as they are with this thing.
So you think the problem is in the rebuild, just the changing of the eyes.
He's muscular too. It's weird. Right. Have you seen the leg posters? Yeah.
The best comment I saw on this came from Mike Drucker, who said they made Sonic look like a mascot for a disease in a pharmaceutical commercial.
Absolutely.
But to your question, I think it actually has more to do not just with what he looks like, but also what direction this movie is going. It's a road trip buddy comedy with Sonic and a cop. And I think when people think of Sonic and making a movie about Sonic, that's not what they think of. But then when you look at Detective Pikachu and making a movie out of it, when you look at that trailer, that kind of looks like what you would expect a movie based on that to look like.
I would say I think it's a myriad of factors, because you look at there's no trailer for the Sonic movie yet, right?
No.
There's not an official one. Okay, but you see the Detective Pikachu trailer. So I've said this before. I have zero emotional connection to Pokemon. I played one game that was just on my Lost Drug summer. It was Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Snap. It's 2 games, but I don't care about it. But I see that trailer and I want to see the movie. It looks fun. It looks silly and just fun. And they're getting it right, whatever that means. But then everything I hear about the Sonic movie, like you said, the buddy road trip buddy thing, it's the cop. It sounds like a Mad Lib that someone just filled in, that without a lot of forethought put into it. But I think it also goes back to the overall generational love of Sonic versus Pokemon. That there's people think Pokemon, they think all these great memories and these games, and there's still this level of quality being produced with the different games. And you think Sonic, and you think for me, Sonic Spinball is a great game. But then for me, I go to, what was that guy's name? Chris Chan? Was that him? the guy who like freaked out in GameStop. Yeah. I think about the absurd amount of vor porn out there for Sonic. Because when I Google Sonic, I get a lot of like pregnant Sonic praying at 9/11. I mean, just a ton of that. I think there's just this like, yeah, there you go. I think there's just this sort of he's been a little handicapped by the culture around him in terms of being a beloved character.
And a string of terrible video games.
Well, yeah, that too, for sure.
Dating all the way back to Sonic the Hedgehog on the Mega Drive.
I always like Sonic.
Wow.
I'll say it. Like, for every good Sonic game, there is a bad Sonic game.
And for Pokemon, they're mostly just good, right? Like, people have just generally enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I don't think Pokemon games rock the boat as much as Sonic games do. Like, Sonic's always trying to do something new, whereas Pokemon's just kind of staying course.
And maybe they took that sort of idea and went with it into a movie, which it's very strange to me. Like, what about that Ratchet and Clank movie that was just like fucking Ratchet and Clank? Like, the first game, it's a movie.
That's the thing that baffles me. Why didn't they just go with, here's a Sonic movie approach?
But you think in terms of what I was saying, in terms of the actual physical difference, the problem is they've just fucked with the idea of what Sonic should or look like in the eyes of the people. That's where you think.
Yeah, definitely. It's too drastic. It's not only just like taking Sonic and making him look a little lifelike with like extra fur. It's like straight up altering him, making him weirdly lanky and more muscular, having no neck, having separated eyes, which shouldn't be a weird thing, but I guess it is. It looks off, and making him like weirdly muscular in parts. It's weird.
And I think giving him a 18-inch long penis was a weird choice too.
A very odd choice.
It seems to be prehensile.
Yeah, I'm building a camera into his urethra.
Oh, that way you can see the moment of conception. That's sweet.
Sounds fine by me.
Okay, so that is it. We're just about out of time for the show, but before we go, Occams, we have a community shout out this week.
Yeah. I wanted to give a community shout out to an old favorite of mine, and full disclosure, I may have given him a shout out before, but it was a rough evening last night and a long day, so you'll humor me. But it's to Gus TT Showbiz, a near and dear user who posts a lot of puns in the
brilliant
Q post. Yeah. And I assume he's either a fucking genius or he's got like a book of puns. Either way, I love it. He makes me smile very often, and he's a good dude. I know he's big over in the Discord server. He's there a lot hanging out. But so community shout out to Gus TT Showbiz.
Awesome. All right, that is it for our show. On behalf of Chris, Charlotte, Dan Occams, and myself, thank you for listening, and tune in next week for an all-new episode of Podtoid.
Sonic Mania is a great game.
It's really good.
The moment of conception.
All right, are they gone?
I think so.
Okay, good. Hello, everyone. Thank you for staying tuned. If you did, this is Spoilsport, where we talk about movies that just came out and kind of spoil them heavily. And the big movie of this weekend was Captain Marvel. It grossed $153 million in North America. Both Chris and myself saw it. We just had some thoughts we'd like to share. So, Chris, let's get right into it. Overall, let's just start. What did you think of the film?
Well, I was pretty surprised, to be honest, because I'd been told by lots and lots of people who hadn't seen it that it was terrible. And in fact, hundreds of thousands of people told me it was terrible. And they caused the website to change its rules because they were so bad at doing this. But I saw it, and funnily enough, I thought it was really good. I didn't think it was terrible. And this isn't even I'm going to fight back against the social justice agenda. I just thought it was a really good, I'd say mid to upper tier Marvel movie. If you're like me and you put Marvel movies in tiers.
I do.
Yeah. So to me personally, it comes lower than Guardians and Ant-Man and films like that. But I think I prefer it to Guardians 2. I even prefer it to Thor 3, which I know is controversial because people really like Thor 3. But I think it's a good upper tier Marvel movie.
I would say it's probably more mid-tier for me. I don't think, I mean, I don't know why you like Ant-Man so much, but I would put it above Ant-Man. For me, it's probably the second best origin story after the original Captain America. Like, that to me is still the best origin story that Marvel has done. But I enjoyed the film, and for me, it was something that had a lot working against it going into the movie, and not just, the whole campaign of hate against it, but it's a prequel, which generally, those aren't as good as the movies that follow it. And so this being a prequel to the entire Marvel universe, it kind of had that working against it, because it couldn't really go to the crazy lengths that it could if it was its own thing. It's a prequel, and then it has the problem that a lot of Marvel films have, in that it doesn't really have a strong villain. I don't think that, first of all, Ronan the Accuser's barely in it, and I didn't like him in Guardians. But Jude Law, I don't think, is a strong villain, and the Kree in general, I don't think they really were that good.
It's strange because I think I'm not a massive comic book devotee. I've read a lot, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. But I think the general consensus to people who are just on the outside of comic books is that the Skrull are all out evil characters. Is that they're all out kind of villains to people on the periphery of comics, at least. So I can at least appreciate the switch that they do with that, because I think it'd be very easy for you to kind of watch that film and genuinely buy into like Talos and the Skrull being the villains. Mm-hmm. So I do think the switch kind of works. Funnily enough, I was talking to my friend who I went with. I don't mind Jude Law, but I didn't really particularly care for like Yon-Rogg as a character. I was kind of glad when I realized that he was like at the beginning, and then he was ducking out of the movie. So when they do the switch and he becomes the villain, I didn't mind as much, because he was now the bad guy, and it was okay for me for him to be an antagonist to my viewing of the film. But I think they do that switch, and whilst I'd agree that Yon-Rogg is not going to like go down in history as one of Marvel's greatest villains,
no,
I can at least appreciate that by having these kind of lesser villain characters, they shake it up in a different way to give his villainry impact. Mm-hmm. By going, oh, actually, the bad guy isn't who you thought it was, and also the reason Carol is where she is entirely because he's essentially keeping her in this, like, frankly, an abusive familial relationship, essentially.
Yeah,
where he's like trained her, and he's like, oh, we're the heroes, and you're my girl, and I'm gonna. When really it's just like, wicked. I've got my hands on this like nuclear weapon. That's awesome.
Yeah, it reminds me of the first season of Jessica Jones.
I haven't seen that, but I'm aware of the plot of it.
Okay, yeah, like where she was in control of the villain for before the series started, and then halfway through the series. Jude Law, he was probably the only casting that I didn't really care for in the movie, but everyone else they did such a perfect job with. Annette Bening is fantastic as her interpretation of the Supreme Intelligence. I think she was able to pull off kind of cold and distant, but also sarcastic, just perfectly. And then my main concern with the film going into it is that, Marvel doesn't really do that good of a job writing female characters. The first female characters I thought that were really well written was in Black Panther last year with Shuri.
Right.
They got Carol Danvers versus Captain Marvel. I think they got her perfect. And I think Brie Larson was perfect in the role because she brought swagger. And that's what I was hoping that they would get. Like, this woman is a trained airline pilot. You would expect someone like that to be a little full of themselves, and they nailed it perfectly, and she nailed it perfectly.
It's so hard to walk that tightrope as well, of doing that and not kind of turning off some of your audience. Yeah. But at no point do I think, maybe if you're a little more close-minded towards the idea of like female heroes, you would. But at no point do I think, oh, she's a bit arrogant. Everything about her whole attitude feels genuine and real, based on her upbringing and her time in the armed forces. But she remains likable. Like, at all point, there's never a point where you think she does a good thing where she hangs out with Fury for the majority of the film. And not only does she give Fury a lot of shit, but when Fury gives it her back, she takes it with such casual good humor instead of either character. Like, Fury and her have an immediate rapport of respect and love for what each other does. Like, there's no point where one of them is felt like kind of necessarily being the underling to the other. They both look at each other, and after the first kind of action scene they have together, are like, I can trust this person, they've got my back, and already I feel like I can kind of mock them, and they'll be cool about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm really glad they didn't dwell on a lot of, you haven't been on Earth in 6 years, you don't really remember everything.
Yeah,
oh my God, what's the internet? What's a telephone? Because, I mean, that would be just the fucking worst. That would be, Dark Shadows, Johnny Depp discovering a television and screaming. Go ahead.
I might be getting ahead of myself here with this, like ahead of the conversation, but we know that essentially this film's being made, and obviously there's spoilers for this film in this chat, and there's going to be spoilers for other Marvel films in this chat, but we obviously know this film's essentially being made to promote Carol as our great hope going forward,
right,
in the universe and against the mad tyrant Thanos. You can't build that character up by having them be like, what's this, a telephone? Or having them be like, I don't know how a car works, or whatever. So they do a really good job in the film, in a way negatively, but we'll get to that. They just do a really good job in the film of, she comes down to Earth and immediately she's not having anyone's shit. She gets on the payphone and S.H.I.E.L.D. come over and talk to her, and she already, she does some magic technology, and she can use the phone to call out of space, which I think is funny. But then S.H.I.E.L.D. come over, and she's just like, "Don't get in my way, mate. I've got shit to do." Do you know what I mean? There isn't like a what's a car? What's a
I mean, if Radio Shack actually had that technology, they'd probably still be in business today.
It's that there is one of my negatives of the film. This is a small negative. Is there is some wonderful convenience in the film, and examples are things like, I've got everything I need right here to turn this payphone into an interstellar connector.
Yeah, that is true. That I remember watching that thinking, so what the hell did she have around her farm or her plantation, whatever it is in Louisiana, that allowed them to take that ship into space? Because I want that stuff around my apartment.
Someone might be able to correct me on this, but like Talos turns up and he's like, "Oh, I've got the black box recording," and it's like, "Oh, have you? Okay." That's useful.
Yeah, I mean, those are what people are going to call, "Oh my God, that's a plot hole. That's why this movie sucks." But I don't know. It just kept the entire breezy nature of the film going because, when you think about it, not super a lot happens in this film.
Yeah, the film was basically kept fast by just maintaining this. I think it's one of the most character-driven of all the movies. Yeah. There's some very, very, very basic MacGuffins, but then it's literally just like introducing you, like helping you get a feel for Carol, why she's who she is, who got her to where she is, and then just the mystery of how she got there and why, whilst just really quickly establishing this rapport of her being able to go to Earth, connect with herself, connect with her old friends, and make like a battle ally in Fury to immediately sell why when Fury needs her. Apparently not during the attack on New York in the Avengers, but when Fury needs her, he can call her down to Earth, essentially.
Pretty much.
I think the chemistry between her and Fury is probably my favourite in terms of characters that aren't like dating, like Hope and Scott in Ant-Man. In terms of like a relationship, it was kind of my favourite male-female relationship since The Winter Soldier, when you have Steve and Black Widow, and Natasha, when they go on the run together. And I think that's a really good. They do like a really good partnership when they're like dressed down and they're doing like the spy stuff. And when like Fury and Carol are like going through the filing areas and stuff, I think it's just I think you're instantly attracted to the magnetism between those two as partners. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I didn't know if they were going to have that, because when I heard that Samuel L. Jackson was going to be basically the co-star of this film, I didn't know what version of Fury that we were going to get, if he was going to be the strong, stringent Fury that you meet in the earlier Marvel films, or not. But then they went with a kind of a younger, he hasn't been hardened by what the world has thrown at them yet. I really like that they went that direction with him, because it absolutely, like you said, allowed him to mesh so well with her character that they were able to bounce off each other back and forth. When she is interrogating him to see if he is a Skrull, I love that scene. And then she's just she just blows up the jukebox. Skrulls don't have that. I love that scene. And I love a lot of the little scenes in this movie. When she's choosing her suit colors with the Rambo's daughter, I liked that scene. I thought that was really well done.
I also really like around that time, her and Maria Rambo at the table.
Yeah.
When she's like, oh, this must be pretty hard for you to take on board. And Maria has that really good monologue where she's like tearing up. And she's like, no, what's hard is when my best friend in the whole world dies and nobody gives a shit about it. And you realize that it's like for years and years and years she's had this loss. Mm-hmm. And she's been grieving with this loss. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, her friend comes back looking the same as she did when she left, except now she can fucking like fire laser beams out of her hands. And just in that short scene at the table, I think they really sell Maria's sudden realization of how, it's cool that you're back, but like everything I've had to kind of suffer, mourning the death of you and mourning the death of Marvel as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, they both went down in the same flight. And I think there's some really good dramatic scenes in there. One of, I think, Marvel's biggest flaws as a company is that I think their exposition's really kind of clumsy. And they are, they're family films. I get that. I always point to Ant-Man and the Wasp as having an atrocious scene of exposition when they meet Ghost. And for like 10 straight minutes, Ghost is like, well, first I did this, and then I was this, and then my dad did this, and then the company took me and did this, but now Lawrence Fishburne's built me this. But what they try and do in Captain Marvel is at least a little different when they try and do, like, I can't remember the name of the procedure, but they do the Skrull kind of mind meld. Mm-hmm. And they have her, and it plays some of her sequences out of step, but within that they do some clever stuff, like they can control her because they're trying to get her, they're like, look at the badge, focus your eyes, and it's just a more interesting way to do that bit of exposition than literally have a character like get a file out and go, Carol Danvers, she grew up on a farm, and then you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, having Annette Bening show up and talk about the sky over and over and over again, I thought that was a really well done scene, and I think that was part of the whole going through her mind, trying to get her to focus on stuff. I think that's the exact scene you were talking about. I love that. And I just wanted to say this. It may not be as good as Guardians of the Galaxy or Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but goddamn, I love the soundtrack to this movie.
I like the soundtrack, but because obviously it's like the music I grew up with.
Exactly.
Know what I mean? I grew up with grunge, and people on Destructoid have literally called me a walking grunge album cover, which I take as a compliment. But so it's good to hear these songs again. I do, and this is where I was going. We'll end this on a high, I'm sure, but we should dip into kind of the negatives.
Okay.
I question some of the cuts and when they happen in terms of audio cuts, because whilst I understand in films like, for example, Guardians, we'll stick to the Marvel universe here, but they're listening to, he's got this tape, and this tape represents his life, and it reminds him of his mum. And I understand that, but whenever they do this, we're in this time zone. So at all times, everyone's got to be listening, whatever they're up to, whether they're in their car or whether they're in the house or working in their garage, there's a radio on playing one of the hits of the day. I find that stuff really contrived, and it does great. It does great on me, to be honest. Like, if you can come up with a reason why people, because you can watch the Avengers, right? And in the Avengers, in every scene, someone isn't listening to a music track from 2009 or 2010, when I've already forgotten when it was. But they're not listening to a song that came out that year. But whenever you have a film set in the 80s or the 90s or the 70s, X-Men does this as well. It's like, at all times, everyone's always listening to a classic track from this era. And that really takes me out of the moment. But that's just me.
Yeah, people might forget they're in the 90s. So quick, put on Natalie Imbruglia's Torn, just so they'll remember.
And we get a bit of everything. They cross all the genres, don't they? Like we get Come As You Are comes in at one point, and yeah.
They go from R&B to grunge to No Doubt for the big "I'm Just a Girl" fight scene.
Yes, and some of those audio cues kind of grate on me a little bit, but that's one of my only few like negatives with the film. The convenience, there is some convenience in there, but in films like this, I'm good to let a lot of that stuff go. And that's what I think, because we don't talk about films a lot. I love films. I probably love them more than video games, but I'm very good at I can watch like something by Bergman and sit there and like for 3 hours afterwards be like in tears and like philosophizing about my life and what I've done with it. But I can also like turn on Captain Marvel and be like, I'm not going to sit and dissect all the problems out of this movie, because I can. That's for other films. I'm quite happy to look at actors I love playing characters I love, entertaining me.
Exactly. I feel the exact same way. Like I'm not gonna judge a movie like Captain Marvel the same way I would a movie like The Favorite. Because it's just there's two different. They're different forms of artistic talent and artistic expression that I will be a lot more critical of something like The Favorite, a movie I absolutely love, versus something like Captain Marvel. And you're right, there are a lot of conveniences there throughout the film. I mentioned my gripes with it being, it's connected to a bigger universe, so they can't obviously do a massive battle scene because that would kind of, I don't know, it would be out of place based on everything that we know about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
And then I didn't think Jude Law was a good villain. The only other thing that I didn't really care for was, I play a lot of Japanese RPGs, and so I am sick and fucking tired of the amnesia storyline. Okay. It wasn't terrible here. I think the way that they approached it through the way that they did her flashbacks and the fact that she didn't necessarily get all of her memories back at the end, that worked out better. But, early on, goddamn, was like, oh, God, not another amnesiac. Ugh.
Right. It's an easy way to conjure mystery in your movie. Well, you've got to stay for the next 2 hours to find out who she was and what it is that triggers her remembering these things. So yeah. And as always, as you mentioned earlier, there's some really good casting choice. Ben Mendelsohn's really good at Talos. You could be thrown a bit by the voice. It's always odd to me to hear like British accents in a lot of these movies, and it's because when we grew up, all we were shown were like American cartoons, American movies. So it still throws you when you play a game or watch a film and you get like a proper kind of almost like a Cockney voice in a movie, especially when it's coming out of like a green alien. But he was really good. And I even liked him as Keller as well when he's in he's like in the human form of Fury's boss. And
that's right. Yeah.
He has the line about he doesn't need to wear the glasses, but they complete the look. Like, I think that's a pretty smart line. But then, and of course, I guess we can't really talk about this film without mentioning Goose.
Oh, Goose!
I genuinely didn't know that was coming because I stay as blind as possible to like movies before I see them, and it got a reaction in the theater. Like,
for me. That did get a reaction in the theater, and I knew something was coming because obviously they kept referring to Goose as, what is it, like the Carvath or whatever it is, but I didn't know what it would be, and I certainly didn't think that that's what it would be. Just this tentacle monster.
That seemingly is like a bottomless pit as well.
Yes, yeah. And can store stuff without digesting it, because who knows how long the Tesseract was in them. But that scene really reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy when Groot just starts going crazy and just starts impaling everyone. Like, that was my immediate throwback when I saw Goose take down those guards in the hallway. So
because they follow it up with like the innocent face, don't they? In both of those instances,
absolutely. Yeah. I think like in Guardians, that was when, I don't know, all the fireflies came off of his body, so it was like really magical, and then he just kills a bunch of people. So
right,
But overall, I enjoyed the movie. I still think it's kind of it's mid tier, but it's up there. For me, as I said, it had a lot working against it based on where its place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But if anything, not having a strong villain in this one really sets her up as the hero of the next movie, because you saw how easily she took down an entire fleet of spaceships by herself. Now she's gonna have to fight the most powerful being in the universe. And let me just say, it was very, very convenient that she was not one of the billions who snapped out of existence. That would have been really bad for them.
I actually brought that up with my friend. I was like, what if Marvel had really fucked with us and that had been like a post-credit sequence? Like, sorry, you know how you saw her do all this shit? Well, she ain't going to be around. Just briefly, because you brought that up, it works as a... I hate to be like wrestling terminology, but it works as building up your face to fight the monster heel. That's kind of like what you do in wrestling. It's what they do with this film. Perhaps they go a little far, having fly through several nuclear weapons and then take out a battleship like fist first to then go... It almost tips the hand too much in like the hero's favor, to be honest. But then again, as I said to my friend, like Thanos fought like 6 fucking Avengers or whatever at the same time, and he still won. So
yeah, and I'm wondering that post-credit scene. Is that a bridge between this movie and Endgame? Or is that scene going to be like in the middle of Endgame?
Right.
Because I'm wondering how quickly they have them fight.
Right. Because post-credit scenes have been done specifically for films, but they have before used an actual scene from a movie as a post-credit scene, haven't they? They do that at the end of Ant-Man when they show the scene of Winter Soldier with his arm in the vice, and Falcon's like, I know a guy, and that's actually a scene from Civil War. So they have been known to use scenes from their movies as post-credit scenes. So yeah, it's interesting to know. It's surprising when they turn around and she's there. It's like,
I didn't know if she was going to appear or not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. This might not mean anything to you because you're American, but generally in Britain, cinema audiences like shut the fuck up. But when that scene happened and she said she turns up and she goes, "Where's Fury?" and it cut to black. I wasn't in a full cinema, but people fucking whooped when that audibly whooped when that happened, and that never happens like in British cinema, fucking ever. But literally, someone at the back of the cinema cheered at the end of that scene.
Yeah,
because he was so excited for Carol's fucking coming. Do you know what I mean?
There was no cheering in my theater. I thought that was kind of weird. Even when she, beat the shit out of Jude Law, there was I busted up laughing, even though that's again a throwback to when the Incredible Hulk beat the shit out of Loki, speech and all. Everyone else was just silent, but I was busting up laughing at that. I thought it was weird. I thought there would be more excitement in the theater, but it was still a packed theater. And before we wrap it up, I just want to say, Marvel, what they did with the Marvel Studios logo and having it just be all Stan Lee, I loved that. I thought that was really well done and really classy.
It was really nice. They do something that's a bit cheesy, but I do like it when he turns up in the film and he's reading the Mallrats script. And then Carol bends the page to check his face. And then even kind of sells it more than just, it's a guy. She almost sells it like, it's you, Stanley. Do you know what I mean?
Is that the script he was reading? That was Mallrats?
Yeah, it's the script for Mallrats, yeah. Because he's practicing his line from one of his lines from the film.
I was trying to figure out what it was, but I couldn't remember because I don't like Mallrats.
Well, if you look at, I think it's on Kevin Smith's Twitter, he burst into tears when he was watching the film and that happened.
I'll have to look at that.
There's photos of him like in floods of tears because something he made was referenced in a Marvel movie.
All right. I think that's about it. I think unless there's anything else you want to add.
No, I think it's, in summary, I think it's an entertaining film. I'll watch it again. I think it does its job at making you like Carol and believe in Carol, and make her the equalizer for like the guy who basically kicked the shit out of all of our heroes. Yeah. So I think it succeeds in that job. And although I don't think it is one of the best origin stories, my favorite origin story is still Iron Man 1, I think. That, or like I say, or Ant-Man if you count that. But the older origin stories, I think it serves its purpose. I think it's entertaining. I'm not sure why people are saying it's boring. I don't get that. I think the pace is a bit sloppy, but I was never like, oh, hurry up. Do you know what I mean?
Right, absolutely.
But I think it's an entertaining film, and I think it does its job, and I think it's cast well. And I'm so excited for like Larson's future as easily what's going to be one of the main 3 or 4 characters in the franchise post Endgame.
All right, that is it. Chris, thank you for joining me on this little segment of Spoilsport.
It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hopefully we'll hit this again maybe with Shazam.